Yo, welcome to my crib. I am Matthew, and welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm not going to be talking about my grad vlog, but again, framing it in the mind of for my future self, I want to talk about what Bitcoin is and why you should buy some. And I think this discussion could be helpful to anyone else listening if they're curious, because I've spent quite a long time in the past 4 years researching it or so. And no, I am not rich off Bitcoin because I lost everything in a boating accident. But actually, I'm just in school, so I don't have a much disposable income. However, I do think you should still buy some. And I'm hoping to act kind of as a impartial third party to anyone out there, because I'm a nobody and I have no financial incentive, but I do think it should be worth a consideration, um, more than just, oh, what is that thing? That's weird. I should not get any. Because I mean, when I think about when I heard about it, I was like in grade 8 or something. And I remember telling it to my brother, and he's like, that's dumb or something. And I'm like, yeah, that is dumb. And, it's funny because full circle, and years go by, you still just hear blips of it in the news and whatnot. And you kind of just are like, still, oh, that's dumb. But then, you know, through word of mouth or something, like I had a buddy, he was like, yeah, I was in it. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to finally spend some time to learn about what it is and um, just commit some resources to impartially see if this actually makes sense or not, Because I think that's something so important to do instead of just kind of being like it's dumb. And I was open to concluding that it is dumb, of course, but I just think that my conclusion was that it was not dumb. And it's such a funny topic, Bitcoin, because so often there are so many quote unquote smart people that I said it's dumb. There are so many quote unquote dumb people that say it's dumb. But there's also so many quote unquote smart people that say it's awesome and quote unquote dumb people that say it's awesome. Like, it is a weird thing that I think it is encapsulated more than it is beyond just like status or intelligent. This thing has become like, it's almost like a philosophy of like those that accept it or not, because what Bitcoin actually is it kind of gets down into the nitty-gritty details about what is valuable, what is value, what is store of value, and it kind of lets you ponder that mystery a little bit. And I think if you join me in this conversation, you'll also kind of pondered that mystery a little bit too. Um, but in terms of what the research I was doing, I mean, I say research, but it's just, immerse yourself in it. And I listened to the very first podcast I listened to was the one by How or We Study Billionaires or something. And that one was very interesting, but they then released one specifically talking about Bitcoin. And that was the first podcast. So it's like, I can't exactly remember. We Study Bitcoin or something. It's by Preston Pish. And I can't remember another person that does it. But that was when I started listening to all those, just like kind of hearing what people had to say about it. And then I was also curious about the What Bitcoin Did podcast. And I haven't listened to these in a while. I don't know how they are, but when I did, I listened to a lot of good content on them, and it really opened my eyes a little bit. And then, as well, just reading about money. There's a book I had that was like, "What is money?" That was nice. And then also a book about, it's called the Bitcoin Standard. I read about half of that. Apparently, it gets into lots of personal opinion later, but at least the first half of that book was very good, and I quote that actually quite a lot, with kind of the contents in that. And um, honestly, just kind of, I don't even know how the research happens. I kind of have a question, and I go and get it answered and whatnot, and I think it's like rinse and repeat. Um, you just kind of gain knowledge along the way. So effectively, I would invite you to just kind of have a seat. Don't have to watch the video, put it on in the background and just listen to what I have to say about it. If you notice, my videos are a lot more chill. I'm just kind of talking. And I like that because so much of our life is busy. And I think we we want to get the quick facts right away. But for a topic like this, I think you should kind of embrace a more long form content because it's not something that you'll just learn in 2 seconds. You have to have a conversation about it. So I hope that this video will kind of act as a conversation and open the floor to maybe more questions that you have or answer any questions that you might have. So I don't know. Be prepared to get philosophical, philosophical, philosophical. Um, these are my notes I quickly wrote. They're scuffed, but just a general framework. But the discussion will flow surely. So what is Bitcoin? The way that I have been explaining it to people is like it is a lot of things, but in general, it's just a digital asset with the name Bitcoin. And if we go so far as to like define what a digital asset is, well, just think about anything that you own in your life, like a car. A car is an asset. Pillows that you own at home are an asset because you can sell them for like money or whatever. Um, I don't know. I think the most common one that will pop up in this video is gold. Gold is an asset. Silver, any precious metals, those are all assets. But a digital asset is now the same thing, but digitized. So you may don't have, it's not physical. Like I can't hold a digital asset in my hand, but I certainly can hold a digital asset on like a computer or something like that. So effectively, Bitcoin is a digital asset, and effectively, all is other cryptocurrencies. So that's the name for all these currencies online, these digital currencies, those cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is cryptocurrency, but this video I'm just going to be talking about Bitcoin because I don't really have too much joy when it comes to all the other cryptocurrencies. I just think that you have to kind of filter through the noise, which is why I kind of stick to researching Bitcoin. And I can get into that a little bit later. But effectively, it's a digital asset. And now this digital asset of Bitcoin, through its history, has also been described. You potentially hear as a currency because we call them cryptocurrencies. So a currency meaning they can transact with it and whatnot. And then you may have other people have told you that Bitcoin is a store of value, which is kind of like gold. People often call Bitcoin digital gold. And I think those are all like great descriptions of it. But to encompass it, I kind of like just to call it a digital asset. My views have shifted through what it is um, over time, and I think it is more so closely related to a store of value than a currency. Um, but I don't think we should. That should be a discouraging thing because, to be frank, this idea is 15 years old. In the grand scheme of the history of gold, when gold was discovered, like, I'm certain after 15 years of time, people are not like, this is a great store of value. You know, it probably took years and years for it to discover what it truly, gold was truly good at. And I feel like the same could be said for Bitcoin. You know, we're going through this discovery phase, and right now it kind of looks like it's emerging to be a very quality store of value. Um, and to understand what it means to be a store of value, there are holy moly, four primary pillars to discuss. So we have scarcity, which is one. We have durability, transactability, and divisibility. So if these four uh, pillars are met for something, then it can be deemed kind of like a good store value or a currency or something. Just like some utility. There's some utility behind that idea, right? So when I to like give an example of this, it's gold, okay? So gold is a scarce resource on our planet. And we know that because um well, intuitively we know that because we know that it costs a lot of money if we try to buy it with our own money. And for one reason, the reason why it's that much money is because it's scarce. There's not a lot of it. Imagine a world where we drove gold cars and had gold toilet seats. Like everyone had that. Do you really think that gold would become a scarce resource then? Or like would we assign gold to have the same value? Probably not. So this idea of scarcity is like we assign value naturally, instinctively as humans to things that there are not a lot of, you know? Um, and gold is just the prime example. Another interesting example, just to get you thinking about scarcity, um, there's an isolated, I don't know if they were isolated, but the story goes, there's this group of people that used seashells um, as a scarce resource to transact with because there was not a lot of seashells. But then um, someone comes along and understands how to find seashells, where to find them, and then kind of ruins the supply. And now there's an abundance of seashells available, and it kind of kills off the money supply, and it's no longer scarce, so it's no longer useful. But gold has been a very good uh, asset that has stood the test of time for being scarce. Now, of course, there's like an asteroid that contains a bunch of gold on it, but we can't really mine it now, etc., etc., etc. And there's another interesting idea, or another interesting consideration, is that there is a growing supply of gold every year. So gold does not have like a fixed supply. There's always consistent uh, gold being found underground. I mean, if in the confines of Earth, of course, there's a fixed supply. Um, but in general, because we don't know where it all is, we're not going to excavate all of Earth. There's always kind of like an idea that there's more gold to come, and that's what it shows. Like that's when you have mining companies coming out, mining their gold, and processing it and refining, and it goes on. So gold, while it's scarce, it's not perfectly scarce. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we assign utility to scarce things. Another example is your trading cards. Why is I don't know, the Ronaldo C7 rookie card? I don't even know if it's a thing in soccer, rookie cards. I'm thinking like hockey. Um, why is that a lot of money? It's because probably there's like not a many of them, and it's rare to have. So intuitively, we kind of know that scarcity is a good thing to have in terms of like a store of value or transactability as a currency. And I guess I could leave that discussion there. Um, and then we have durability. Um, so durability is useful because it can remain as a just as like a unit through time. So um, gold, for instance, is a very durable resource. It doesn't really crumble. Stuff doesn't shave off. It kind of maintains its weight through time. Maybe a playing card is not as durable because it can get. I have something in my eye, sorry. Because a playing card can rip, so you have to take very high precaution when storing it. Um, but we kind of intuitively know that durability is useful because if I had some value, like in terms of maybe like gold and stuff, I want my gold to maintain its usability through time. I don't want it to erode. I don't want it to um, all of a sudden open up my storage cellar and my gold is just crumbled into a dust and it's been wafted away and eaten by like mice. You don't want that. You want to just know that you can just throw your gold in there and just let it sit and it will be gold through time and that gives its uh, value. And then we have transactability. I think that's very intuitive. Are you actually able to transact with this asset? With gold, you can. I can carry some of it in my pocket, take it out, give it to a vendor. Well, maybe not in modern times, but before, imagine you walk up to a vendor, you can give them gold. They can give you some change in gold coins or something. Like you can walk around with it and you can transact. People want it, um, and that's good. Similar, like I guess a trading card, you can carry that around easily. I get a good example of something that's not transactable. Um, it was from the Bitcoin Standard. They talked about this uh, old civilization who used giant like granite circles for a currency, and these giant granite circles couldn't be carried around, so they kind of just stayed there in the town square, and people just knew who owned what because there was like a ledger. Someone kept a ledger of like who owned which, and it's like it's durable. In those confines of the island, it was scarce because you couldn't find this granite a lot, or in the shapes of it, and uh, but it was not really transactable in the context of like carrying it around and giving. They made it transactable by making someone like the public ledger and like signing names to the blocks. So it's kind of clever. So you can kind of see how naturally the transactability component is like wanted for an asset. You want to be able to transact with it. And then the last pillar is divisibility. So assuming gold only came in 10 ounces and like I can't and I'm selling a product for like 5 ounces, I can't give change to him. I can't actually accept that. So I have to price everything at 10 ounces. Like, and if I couldn't divide gold and I had to carry around uh, a bar, that's heavy. I can't even move around with that. So the visibility is very important because you can go down into small increments and start transacting and giving change and um, kind of being more precise and what is the word I'm looking for? Precise and complete with your transaction. And you can carry it around because I mean, gold is heavy. And if I had to carry around a massive ingot and I couldn't really divide it, so I have to pay in a massive ingot. But then what if I want to buy a house? Then I have to cart around all my ingots, and it's just like kind of a nightmare. So you do want to have some sort of divisibility because it also acts as. Also, I just realized that point doesn't really stand because to buy a house in ingots, divisibility does not necessarily help. Um, So I guess what I would say is like the main idea is that I'm thinking of is a kind of also like economies of scale. It kind of allows for a I don't know, I'm just thinking about like so if everyone had gold, right? Like back then, and there were some countries that had more economic power, some that didn't, meaning like these people sold expensive products and these people didn't sell as expensive, but they both use gold. You can now have kind of this unified circular trade thing going still, um, because the currency can divide and become a bit in smaller denominations and whatnot. Um, so that's kind of some commentary on divisibility, but effectively, it's a lot. I know there's a lot. But we have scarcity, durability, transactability, and divisibility. And now, when to relate this to Bitcoin, I will tell you that Bitcoin is 100% scarce. There are only 21 million Bitcoin ever available. So what that means is Bitcoin is actually more scarce than gold. It's 100% scarce. So if I so if all the Bitcoin were owned, okay, by people, the only way for you to get any Bitcoin is from someone. You couldn't go into the mine shaft and like collect some Bitcoin. And I mean, I'll put an asterisk here because you've probably heard of like Bitcoin mining and yeah, you probably heard of Bitcoin mining and that we can get into that later. But for all intents and purposes, after the year like 22,100 and like 24, I don't exactly remember the date, all the Bitcoin will be released into circulation and there'll never be any more. Okay? So there's a fixed supply. There's a fixed supply. And it's interesting because it just matches that scarcity pillar perfectly, you know? And same with durability. Bitcoin is very durable because it's a digital asset. That means that it can be preserved 100% through time. There is no wear or tear on the actual asset. Um, as a very good property to have because now I can own Bitcoin 10 years later. It's still the same Bitcoin, same amount. It does not degrade. It's not turn into that gold dust, hypothetical gold dust that I was talking about. And maybe a skeptic will say, oh, but it's on the digital internet thing. What if my hard drive breaks? What if we go through some apocalyptic thing where electricity doesn't exist? Um, Two quick answers, and I can make a longer video about this. Answer to the first question about the hard drive breaks. It doesn't matter if your hard drive breaks, so as long as you uh, remember a certain phrase and you can log into your Bitcoin account from anywhere in the world. Usually it comes in the form of 12 words or 24 words. And if you remember these 12 or 24 words, you can access your Bitcoin anywhere. If your hard drive breaks, so be it. Go to another computer, input your 12 to 24 words on a thing, and the rest is history. You're back in. So that probably sounds crazy to a lot of people. Maybe even like it's insecure, but um, rest assured, tw- the possible 12 words that you could have is in like order. It's an astronomical number. So someone to guess that it's effectively impossible. Of course, people are worried about quantum computing and whatever, but I can make another video on that. But with our current computational power, you cannot hack into an account. You just have to remember these 12 words. And if you can do that, it's 100% durable. And I guess that wasn't really a short answer. And then the short answer to the apocalyptic scenario, I don't know. I'll just say, like, you're right. It's not 100% durable in that case. But if servers ever did come back online, you'd still have access to your Bitcoin. But to be frank, I feel like money is not really a concern in that stage. Like, gold is also irrelevant. Like, everything is dumb in an apocalyptic scenario. You actually want food. Food is a lot more scarce in that environment, so you value it a lot more. It's kind of interesting when you start to compare and contrast with like things that we value in our society as um, I don't know. Like I feel like we've lost the touch of caring about food that much because there's an abundance of it. We can just buy it with our money. We have money. We get food. There's lots of food. It doesn't matter. But as soon as food's gone, then you care about food. So I think to answer the apocalyptic scenario, I think that's like an edge case. Like, of course, yeah. I think we don't really care about durability or whatever. But again, if the apocalypse is over, servers come back online, you get your Bitcoin if you remember the 12 to 24 words. Um, Another one for Bitcoin is transactability. I mean, because it's a digital asset, you can transact digitally with it to anybody, to be frank. Before, with gold, you'd have to kind of be around somebody and pass the gold to them. You could try to mail it if you want, if you had a purchase to make like far away. But I think it's quite fascinating that Bitcoin can be transactable just through the internet. Like it doesn't need another medium of transportation. Like the internet is the medium of transportation. And I think it is it's just so incredible because now we can pay people across the world without even having to go through some crazy measures of sending money. And you may be thinking about like, okay, but what about like, I don't know, Visa, MasterCard, um, or sending money, wire transferring. You're right. Like those are also things that you can do. Um, and I think that is an incredible feat for the humankind. But money on its own, like your dollar, cannot do that, right? I can't just like somehow um, give it to someone, like, or like give it to someone far away. Like I can give it to someone, and that's the only way to transfer the money. But with Bitcoin, like you can just transfer it. You don't need another medium. You don't need someone else to do it for you. Like the banks are the ones effectively doing the communication with the government money. But with Bitcoin, it's like it's almost like the money is doing it itself. Like it's some weird thought. Like obvious course there's more nuances and we can get down and deep in a different video, but I think that should be appreciated in its own. Like it does not need a third party to really transact and transfer that money, okay? Even though I can still send it from United States to Bangladesh, you know? And then the last one is divisibility, and similar to gold, you can divide it. I can't remember, well, the base unit of Bitcoin is called a Satoshi. I can't remember, it's like 100. I don't know exactly. One Satoshi. I don't know the conversion from a Satoshi to Bitcoin, but you can divide Bitcoin. Like when you go to, if you were to buy a Bitcoin, you don't have to buy one Bitcoin. You could buy zero point 0.5. You could buy um, 0.0001 Bitcoin. Okay, you can divide, and often people are like, okay, so then isn't there infinite Bitcoin then? Because you can divide into like smaller denominations. I mean, isn't there infinite gold then? Because you can divide gold into smaller uh, denominations, into like little tiny pebbles. So I don't even think that's like a necessarily good argument. I think it just people have to kind of start to consider more philosophy in terms of like what is money, because it's like, yeah, you can divide Bitcoin quite a lot. There is a fixed amount to how much you can divide it, but so can you with gold. You can't do that with the government money. The smallest denomination, at least in the United States or Canada, was a penny. I mean, Canada has recently removed the penny, so it's like 5 cents. So it's quite interesting to think about, and I don't think divisibility means that there are infinite number. So holy moly, good work if you're still here with me. But all in all, Bitcoin is a scarce, durable, transactable, and divisible asset. It fulfills the four pillars of what makes a good, um, I guess, currency or store of value. And I don't think it should just be neglected. Like, if you have something that fulfills those pillars, history shows it just naturally gets adopted. Um, and I think it's just a very interesting um, thing to consider. Just trying to think about what I want to say next. And I think, like, considering, like, people can say, oh, it has no value, it's backed by nothing. Look at gold, look at your playing cards. It's also backed by nothing. It is, holy moly, it is just the thing. It has value just because it has value. You know, if people collectively decide it has value, then it has value. And we're at this weird stage now, 15 years in for Bitcoin, that there are millions of people that have decided it had value. It has value, and it wasn't the case when it first started. Like, people didn't assign it any value. You could have bought it for like 0.0001 penny, 1 USD. You know, and then before you know it, you could buy it for 10 USD, 100 USD, and 15 years later, now you can buy it for like 100,000 USD, and it's like, it's just so interesting to oh, what was my thought going? It's just very interesting, you know. We just start to assign value to it, and people say it's the fool's game. Well, I mean, so is the assigning value of gold. It's the fool's game. Like, gold, does it actually have value? Are you telling me that people hundreds and hundreds of years ago thought gold was valuable because it could make circuit boards? Bro, they didn't even know what circuit boards were, you know? And do you think gold was valuable because you could wear it as jewelry? I don't think so. I think they wore it as jewelry because they could preserve their wealth and keep it on their body. And it was kind of a sign of status to show how much gold you had. It was the gold that had the value. It wasn't the utility of the asset that has the value. And I think Bitcoin has been scrutinized for not actually providing utility, in terms of, like, what can you use it for? Well, I'm here to say I don't care what you can use it for and build with it. Of course you can't build a circuit board with it, but what you can do is preserve your wealth over time because it's scarce, durable, you can transact with it, and it's divisible. Like, that's what I care about. The essence of what makes it useful. Like, I don't care about if, like, I can make jewelry out of it. I never cared about that with gold anyway. Like, if I were to buy gold today, I don't care. I'm not gonna make it into jewelry. But so I just think it's an interesting conversation. Like, where does value innately come from? Why do we even value our own why do we even value our own currency in our government, you know? Because we're told to. We're just told to. Like, that's where the value comes from. And I can get into it, but like, the United States of America had this interesting thing happen to them in 1971 where they went off something called the gold standard. Where prior to that, every American dollar was backed by an equivalent uh, piece of gold, you know? And what that meant is anybody could walk in to a bank or something, hypothetically, and be like, I would like to exchange this American money for some gold. And they would do that. And effectively, that meant that the Americans were limited in the amount of currency available. And I think the reason why they did that is just because they could create different denominations easier, and you can transact with it. You don't have to carry around your gold. The people keep the gold safe. You can get insurance on that money. If it, so it's this interesting system. However, they went off the standard. What they allowed them to do is create an unfixed supply of money. So before there was an equivalency, and now there's not. There's just not. That's why you hear like during COVID or whatever, like governments are printing like billions and billions of dollars. It's just because they can, and it is a useful thing for them to do, because they can do whatever they want with that printed money. But the problem with that is, long term, it just steals value out of um, the citizens' pockets. Because when uh, more supply is added into, like, for instance, you have this fixed amount of dollars or whatever, or yeah, you have this fixed amount of dollars. I think we can go back to the actually the seashell analogy. Like, you have this fixed amount of seashells. You guys are transacting with seashells, happy in your little community. Some guy comes around, is like, "Whoa, I can like find these seashells somewhere," and he finds a big bag and he comes to your city and starts like trading seashells and mixing it in with your own money, and suddenly there's just more seashells that go around and it's less scarce, which means that it's worth a bit less. And that's what's happening to your money. So it's like, yeah, governments have more ability to do things, and like, I don't know. People just often say that it's good because in case there's a recession, they can print more money, yada, yada, yada. And maybe that's true. But I think it also is the case that it can steal value long term from your citizens, and there could be another way forward other than doing that. But it's history. It happened. Cool. Whatever. We live with it. Um, and but that's just basically kind of my take on the dollar. We kind of are like, yeah, this has value, but what's backing it? Oh, the government. But what's backing the government? Oh, guns. What's backing the gun? Like, there's always this layer of abstraction that you can keep on asking, going down, and you always reach this final like conclusion that like nothing's backing anything. And I think just the most valuable thing, like sorry, things are just valuable because we collectively agree that they're valuable. Like, that we collectively agree that the dollar's valuable because they said so, and we have to listen. And I agree, we have to listen, because if we don't, then how can we participate in the society and whatever? But something cool is happening, is that people are collectively agreeing that Bitcoin has value, and in and of itself, that is giving it value. And it's what's happened to gold historically, as I'm speculating, you know, like, people overnight didn't just say gold is value and everyone believed them. They went through probably many year period of time where they discovered that gold is valuable because there wasn't a lot of it, you know? And I think the same thing is happening to Bitcoin. Um, and whew, but there are a couple questions I should answer. I think I've been asked a lot is, can it be hacked? No, it cannot be hacked. Maybe when Bitcoin was first released, because there were like a couple computers running the software required for the servers. But in today's standards, the amount of computational resources that are required to actually um, overcome Bitcoin's server, I her what to say? Like in today's world, the amount of computers that are required to actually nefariously like screw something up on Bitcoin is like astronomically high, and it just won't happen. Effect especially because if you consider um, the Bitcoin computers as a whole, it's like the largest computing resource in the entire world. People say it's yeah, it's people argue that it's using a lot of energy and that it's useless. They're doing useless computation, securing the network. There could be some merit to the argument. However, there's also the argument that that could be the price to pay for having something governed by nobody and being 100% secure. You know, we can get into the technical sides in like a different video, but it can't be hacked in short. And like, how is it that there's a fixed amount? Well, it's programmatically set in the code. Can anybody change the code? Well, yeah, I could change the code, but then when I try to participate in the network, I'll get kicked out automatically because I'm a nefarious party. So actually, you cannot change the code and still participate in Bitcoin. Therefore, is everyone acknowledges that there's only 21 million Bitcoin because it's impossible to actually change it. Because if you did, you would no longer be part of the network and you'd have your own little one computer network being like, yeah, there's 25 million Bitcoin. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Um, and you could do that, but you're not going to be able to join the actual larger, broader network because the code does not match, you know? So Bitcoin is built in a very interesting way because any deviations in the structure will result in your kind of banning of the servers that are running it. Um, which is also why it can't be hacked because I can I can go out and change some transactions around on my own computer and run like a little computer with my friends, but that's not part of, it's called the main chain or like the blockchain. Like it's not part of the overall arcing longest chain. I don't know, we're gonna get too technical now, but effectively doing that does not agree with the one that everyone else agrees on. Therefore, mine sucks. Everyone else's is awesome, so they use that. Um, and then I don't know. Uh, Distribution of it. People often, I think, talk about how it's unfairly distributed and whatnot. I think that is a decent critique of it because at the end of the day, like distributions of wealth isn't that the problem that we're kind of trying to circumventing or whatever with Bitcoin. And I don't know. You can argue which problems Bitcoin is trying to circumvent. I personally just think it's trying to be a currency for people to use that people can't intervene with and like a store of value for over time. Others seem to think that it should solve uh, inequality and whatnot, and I think it definitely could help, but I don't think it's going to be a perfect solution, especially because, as you see, there's a unequal distribution of it all throughout the world. Like corporations have like 405,000 Bitcoin or something, and um, Isn't that what we're trying to prevent? Uh, I don't know. I just think that that's also something that naturally that just happens with like gold and stuff as well. Like just like a an aggregation of wealth. Like it doesn't that result in like kingdoms and stuff? Like isn't that why they were kings, because they had all the money? And it just seems like it's like a natural progression that you can't really get around. Because if everyone also had a fixed amount, I don't know. I'm just thinking like, would anything actually happen? I kind of imagine of like uh, the end of the universe when all entropy is settled and like there's no more random hot spots and stuff and everything is cool. Like, would anything actually happen? Like, I just think having different distributions are almost like a function of a society, a world, and I think it's inevitable. But I think that it's interesting because in this case of Bitcoin, if you have all of them, not all of them, a good portion of them, you still cannot make more for yourself. You can't steal anybody's Bitcoin. Um, the in our modern times, like if you have all the US dollars, you can effectively make more for yourself because you have all of them. You can coerce people to print more. You can get people to change fiscal policies in your favor and preserve your wealth. But in the world of Bitcoin, everyone is kind of on the same playing field. You can't make more, you can't make less, you can't steal, and it's kind of an interesting thing to consider. So it doesn't necessarily solve the distribution dilemma, but it certainly does improve upon some aspects of fairness, you know. And then another question is, uh, why is it unstable? You can't use something that's so unstable. It goes through 50% drops, 60% drops, and then all of a sudden it goes up and down and up and down. And say, I get it. You can't use it. Can't be a currency if it's so unstable. You're right. Like, who would use something that there's a XKDC or whatever where it's like Bitcoin's $10,000. I don't know. There's an XKDC. You could look it up. And yeah, it's a fair criticism, but I, for one, am not looking at Bitcoin to be a currency right now. I'm looking at it to be a store of value. Um, so then why does it drop 50%? How can you stomach that? Well, you're a new adopter, you know? It's been around for 15 years. 15 years only. And you're telling me that it has to be stable right off the bat. I don't buy it. You know, this is like a new form of asset class that has never existed before in the history of mankind, and we want it to be stable after like 15 years. 15 years is no time at all, you know? Um Again, I kind of go back with the analogy of like gold and stuff. Like I don't buy that the adoption of gold did not experience like if we want like if we look back at gold, are we saying that gold's adoption was very stable and the price of gold was super flat and stable and nothing happened and there was no like big spikes and whatever? Like there were certainly lots of big spikes. You know, there has to have been. It's a new thing. No one knows what it is. It's in a price discovery phase, similarly to Bitcoin, you know, it's going through a price discovery phase. Should it have been flat after 15 years? I don't think so. You know, like the price of it is still being discovered and found, and it will experience crazy swings and drops, and it just kind of naturally makes sense. But if you cut out the noise of it all, like the overall trend of it, people are seemingly adopting it. The network is growing bigger, you know? And um So I think it's just very natural. I don't think it's a valid criticism, is it, for it to be unstable? It is bad, you know? Like it is just in just price discovery, and gold would seemingly have done the same. Any new asset class would of course go through that. It's not meant to just not do anything, you know? What? Um, and I don't know, there's so many little things I could get into, honestly. Um, but I will say another question is why Bitcoin and not other cryptocurrencies? At the outset of this video, I said that I'm not really discussing other cryptocurrencies, and I think that um, I do that for good reason. You know, I just personally don't believe in any other. Of course, there's is always like a second, like gold has silver and there's copper, whatever. If you take that analogy, and in the context of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum, I don't know what's next. Is it XRP? I have no idea. But there are other cryptocurrencies, right? And they all promise to serve a different purpose and whatnot. And fundamentally, I never gave them any time of day, just because, for one, the origin story of all of them are it comes from just a company. You know, a company developed it to serve a purpose, and a company um, gave investors their cut before they launched the cryptocurrency, and the company is there to serve themselves. They say that it could be for the people, but at the end of the day, we live in a capitalistic society or world, these companies do, where they want profit. End of story. Bitcoin's origin story, developed by Satoshi Nakamoto. No one knows who he is, or that, or she, or whom, or you know, no one knows who they are. So it's a very interesting origin story, and I can get into it again in a different video, but it's the most organic adoption of a currency. There's no backing company that can be nefarious with the actions. Um, and because there's no backing company, it can just persist through time, all of it. And because there was no backing company, nobody got an unfair advantage. And because there's no backing company, and because it was anonymous, like Satoshi effectively just did it for the good of the people, you know? And as a result, Bitcoin is the very first cryptocurrency. And I think that should give a lot of weight when you choose what to be interested in. Why would you not want to go with the first that had the most organic origin story, that has satisfies all, like, four pillars, and um and just keeps collecting the minds of people. You know, it's become a household name. The network effect is an amazing effect, and in this world of um, agreeing on what is valuable, because that's what humans do. We all agree on what's valuable. The thing with the strongest name and network survives. So I think in terms of looking at what cryptocurrency to buy, just stick with Bitcoin. It's simple. It's a household name. Everyone's adopting it, and not everyone's adopting it. Companies are adopting it. It ETF launches, yada yada yada, and it has the most pure origin story, period. I need some water before I conclude. So, excuse me, why should you buy Bitcoin? If you've gotten this far in the video, I applaud you because I just looked and it is an hour in length. That is absurd. Um, that's crazy. I'm just rambling. It's good. But I hope it made sense. But why should you buy Bitcoin? Bitcoin. I mean, um, well, in my opinion, well, there's two reasons I will say. Reason one is that it is just a great store of value. It matches all the four pillars of being scarce, durable, transactable, divisible. To be a store of value, maybe you don't even need all four, but to be a currency, you at least do. And it is all those things. It can't be hacked. Everything's fixed programmatically. Um, it's going through this cool price discovery phase where people don't really know what it is. And I just think it's like wise to just own some of it because you don't know what it will become, but what you do know is that it matches a pillar, these four pillars. Cut through all the noise. People talk about all the time of the price of Bitcoin. I don't care what the price of Bitcoin is. Care about what the principles of what it built upon are, you know? And I think if you do that, it just makes sense to own some. It makes it clear that you need to own some because or that you should. It might be a good idea to own. I don't want to like demand that you do something, but I just think it will make it very clear that it's wise to own some. And there's a lot of noise out there talking about all this, how to make big money, whatever, yada yada yada, option trading. Just honestly, just buy some and wait and just see what comes of it because the this leads into reason two. No other, like almost no other time in history, human history, did we have an adoption of like a new form of asset like this. Not just like this mean digital. I just mean like an asset, like a commodity like this, like that you can like store value, etc. Like we had our people used copper, sure. That was so long ago. People used silver, sure. So long ago. People had gold. They used that so long ago. Seashells so long ago. The big granite circles, yeah, that happened so long ago. Um, but then we have this development of, oh yeah, we also had like government money. People adopt that, and it's like now we get into this idea of society. It's easier to adopt like what our society wants from us, but then you have this completely. I gotta use this hand because it's different. Completely different, like structure of like wealth storage, whatever you want to call it, store of value, and we are somehow living in the time that it is happening. Is that not profound to you? Like, just get some of it because there's no other period in history where a digital currency will be new again. This is now an unoriginal idea, if that makes sense. Like, it has formed its entire new asset class, and it has been done. So, I just think it's an interesting thing to just buy some and just participate in just the excitingness of humans just agreeing if it's valuable or not, you know? And history shows that things that are valuable are things that are scarce, mainly, durable, transactable, divisible. But also, even if Bitcoin, people argue that Bitcoin is not as transactable because there's a like it takes 10 minutes to process a transaction or whatnot. But then it's a good store of value then. Like trading cards are valuable. How are they valuable? I don't know, but people agreed upon it. And I think we're going down this interesting storyline that's humans agreeing if it's valuable or not. And I think it's just very exciting to watch unfold. And why not join in and potentially be a very early adopter? It's 15 years later, but it's still an early adopter in the life cycle of that is Bitcoin. And I hope this answered any questions, shine some light. And for you, future Matthew, uh, hope that your ideas stood the test of time and were concrete and made sense, and that you can look back and be proud of kind of some of the research that you've done and understanding what is Bitcoin. So I am Matthew. This is my video, and take care. Bye bye. Bum bum bum.